because they're all the same type. Okay, so I've said, okay, I want it to be a red dashed line. Okay, maybe I don't like that. Click on here, or any one of them, it doesn't matter. Click on here, check the properties. Tells me here I can't change it from inside this window, but I can look at it. Okay, to change these, you have to go edit, and I can say, okay, no, I want it to be blue, and I want it to be line weight. I want it to be a heavy line. I want it to be like a 10, and I want it to be a line pattern, you know, maybe a dash dot 3/8. Hit apply, hit OK, and there we have our god-awful looking level lines. We'd never want to do that because we like to keep our lines very thin. Back to here, the blue is fine, but the line weight needs to go back to being 0. And hit OK, or I should say 1. And now we have our level line. So we can change that, and that'll change all of them. Okay, now if I zoom out, again, sometimes when you're zoomed way out and you want to stretch this, if I want to click this and see I can't get that blue dot, use your tab button. Click on here. Your tab button on your keyboard will always cycle through the objects in the area. Now, I could click on this and zoom way in and grab this and shuffle it along and shuffle it along. It'd take me forever to drag that over. Okay? Notice the 2D symbol. I could change that back to be 3D if I wanted. Now, otherwise, I can click on here. Now, I might be able to get that, which is fine. Okay? If I click on here and I'm zoomed way out, watch, I can go tab, tab, tab. Read, you can see down here in the status bar, tab, tab, modify level by dragging there. Now I can click and drag this and move it over to there and hit escape. So when you cannot, in any case, not just with levels, if you can't grab the object you want, hit your tab button and read down here on the status bar. Tab, edit the parameter, tab, tab, add elbow, and then modify drag. Now I know I've got that in there. And then of course if you drag them and you drag one near another one, they'll start to lock. So intuitively, when you drag a level line and it gets near, as soon as you see that green line show up, okay, it's going to lock it automatically. In this case, I probably want to add an elbow in by clicking on here, and then maybe even clean that up by dragging this over, make it look nice like that. I don't need that dimension. I can click it to delete it. So always use your tab button to cycle through, be it with levels or beams or columns or anything in any view. Okay, levels aren't visible in a 3D view. They're only visible when you look perpendicular to them. And I can go back on here, put some check marks on our levels. Okay, now everything is tied to a level. By default, when you draw objects, structural objects, they get drawn down from the level. When you draw architectural walls, they go up from the level by default. You can still make either one go up or down from the level, but I'm talking about the default. Okay? If I go to my top of slab level and I go in here and I say, okay, I'm going to draw a structural wall. We'll talk all about walls and the properties. Center line, basic wall, maybe I'm going to do a 12-inch concrete wall. And now I'm going to check the properties. By default, it's going to go, the base is from the top of the slab starting 6 feet below the top of the slab. So the bottom of the wall is starting 6 feet below the slab, and the top of the wall is going up to the slab. So basically it's going from 6 feet below the slab up to the slab, which means it's really being drawn below the slab. So that's fine. I'm going to accept that. I can change these, and we'll learn all about different options and stuff when we get to walls in particular. I just want to work on levels. So we're going to draw basically a 6-foot wall because it says the height is 6 feet grayed out, starting below and going up to the slab. So not only that, I'm going to even use the box option and draw 4 walls and hit escape. If I go to my 3D view, zoom out, there's my 4 walls that I just drew, and I can look at that in shaded mode. Okay, shift middle mouse button, I can see those walls there. Now when I go back to my elevational view and I zoom out, there's those walls that I drew. Well, I'm going to click on here, I'm going to drag those over. And there's those 4 walls that I drew, and guess what? there they are. If I do a dimension from here to there, there's my 6 feet. Now watch what happens. If I take my slab level and I say you're not at 0, you're at 2 feet, watch what happens. Enter. Because the way these walls were drawn, they were told to go 6 feet below the slab up to the slab level. Well, that's what it's doing. If I take this slab level and I say, no, you are at minus 6 feet, relatively speaking, 6 feet, I can say feet, or I don't even have to say feet. Enter. It moves the level, and because these walls are told to go from 6 feet below up to the level, they will always follow that level. Okay, let's go to my 3D view. I'm going to grab all these walls. I'm going to change the properties to say, okay, good enough. The base starts 6 feet below. The top is going up to the level plus 3 feet. Watch what happens to my walls. First of all, they get higher. Okay, go back to my elevational view. Now look what happens. I've got a dimension from here to here. That's now 3 feet. Escape, escape. We'll learn more about dimensions. Now watch what happens. I'm going to click on this level. I'm going to change it back to be at the elevation of 0. Boom. Now the walls all move with it because they are associated to that level. Okay, everything's associated to the level. I can even use my nudge command. Watch what happens. I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard and I'm going to nudge that. Notice I'm nudging it. It's moving in what appears to be 5-inch or 7-inch increments, and the increment depends on how far you're zoomed out. But as I move that level around, all those walls are tied to that level and they will move with that level accordingly. Again, we'll learn more about it. Let's open up in another project. Let's go File, Open. Okay, I'm going to go to my Training Files folder. I'm going to go to Imperial. I'm going to go open a file called Imperial Gallery, and I'm just going to open that up, a little more of a completed project for us. It's going to open up that project for us, and I'm going to go to my elevations, and I'm going to go to my south elevation. Okay, if I go to my level 1, south would be probably looking from here, and we can control that. So south elevations, there we've got some levels. Level 6, level parapet, level 4. I'm going to type SD for shaded mode, or I can go down here and pick shaded mode on there. Okay, there's a level. Now watch what happens. I'm going to take this level 1, click on here, and I'm going to take this number and I'm going to change it to be minus 4 feet. Enter. It's going to chug a little bit. It's going to regenerate, revise instantly, and now guess what? Hit escape. My whole building has gone down by 4 feet very quickly. Now all of the sections, this cross section over here, okay, SD for shaded mode, has changed that now by 4 feet. Okay, this slab right here, if I look at the properties of it, is at level 1, offset by 0, which means that wherever this level goes, this slab is going to follow. If I click on this wall and check the properties of it, the base constraint is level 1, offset of 0. And then going up to the top, up to level 2, which just happens to be 16 feet away because minus 4 and 12 is 16 feet. Escape, escape. Also notice that these level lines are using a dash dot line type, which we saw in the properties over here. It's using a dash dot. Okay, so now you can see very quickly how I could go in and someone says, oh, well, you know what? I need to change the parapet, has to get higher for some reason. I'm going to click on this level. I'm going to zoom in, take that 39 feet and make it 41 feet. I don't have to say feet, and hit enter. I'm going to pan over a little bit so we can see it. Boom, there my parapet has gone up. All my elevations, being my north, my south, my west, and my east, have all had SD, I'm typing now, for shaded mode. And now we can see that that parapet is updated. So in a completed model, very quickly we can change the elevation of our levels. Okay, and we can take these guys and now move them around. Notice these are set to be 2D, which means that if I look from, look at the east elevation, or at the east elevation, I'm going to drag this over to be way out here. Okay. Oh, let me just try that again. Pull that back. Okay, let's do this one. They're locked. I'm going to move those over. Okay, this guy's out of sync. That's okay. Now, from the east, if I look from the west, which is the opposite side, okay, there's those elevation symbols. If I drag on here and I drag that over, if it's 2D and I go to the east, I'm only dragging those in that one view, not in the other view. Okay, so as you go and draw these, now in this case, my elevation lines don't even cross my building. So I'm going to click on here, okay, and I'm going to take these and I'm going to drag these all over to here. Click on, click out. Now if I look from the south elevation, okay, it didn't affect these ones because they're set to be 2D. 2D means that when you look at the opposite side, it's not going to, it's only for that one view. So there's a quick lesson on levels. Everything is associated to the level. You change the level, updates the model, and that's really a big part of the power of Revit, revising instantly. And the last note I just occurred to me is that you can turn off, if you have a level you don't want to view in this particular view, you can click on an annotation object and you can right click and say hide annotation in this view. Boom, it disappears. Okay, click on here, right click, hide annotation in view, it disappears. If you hover over it, it'll come back, okay, or you'll see it ghosting in. Click on it, right click, and show annotation. So for some reason, sometimes even a section line, you can click on that section line and you can right click and say hide annotation, which means it just won't show up. Then you can go back later and click on it, right click, show, and it'll come back. You can't do more than one at a time. You cannot click on, for instance, here and use a control button to click on, more than one of these. If you right click, you won't see that hide option. Okay, you have to do them individually by clicking on here and saying hide annotation. And then if you want to bring them back, you cannot click two of them at once and bring them back. You have to go click on here and then show it, click on here and then show it. So any annotation symbol, or most I should say, you can click on it and hide in the current view, and then the other views it'll still show. And one last point in clarification of the 2D 3D aspect. When you click on here and it says 2D, you're going to see a dashed line. If you zoom out, what it means is on the opposite end in 3D, that's where the symbol is. And when you drag this guy over and let it go on there, that's when it gives you the option to turn it back into a 3D, which means that it's in sync with the opposite view. I'm going to undo that back again. Okay, watch what happens. I'm going to click on here and it says 2D. If I drag this out and then stop it, okay, what happens is that this bubble means that's where the level line is in the other side in 3D. Now if I take this and I drop it onto there, boom, now it's saying it's 3D, which means if I drag it here and I'm in the south view, I'm also dragging that same point in the north view. Okay, if I make it 2D and I drag it, now I'm only dragging it in the south view. The north view, the end of the line is still over there. Okay, and a lot of people get confused with that. Clicking on here, that symbol is where the other end of it is. This end is in 3D at the north view. If I drag this over and drop it into that circle, boom, let it go. Now when I drag it, I'm dragging the end of this line in both north and south views. Okay, so as soon as you go 2D, it's now going to drag out of sync from the other side, and sometimes that's what you want. So when you click on it, it says, okay, the 2D one is here, the 3D guy is over there. So if you want to make it in sync with the other one, you click on here, and it's a matter of when you look at this view from opposite sides, sometimes you want these ends to be in the same place and sometimes you don't.